ECUA Board on Tuesday, July 27th to order. We invite you to join us as we offer a prayer and pledge. Dear Lord, today as the world celebrates the personal sacrifice and hard work of some of the greatest athletes we've ever produced, we remember that our aspirations are what unite us and that the globe is indeed very small. That from acts of kindness to acts of COVID, it's what we do or fail to do that has ripples around the globe. Help us be mindful that we are part of a community of man and act accordingly. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We come now to the adoption of the agenda. By the way, Ms. Campbell has had some surgery and is joining us remotely. Ms. Campbell, at any time, if you want to speak, just raise your hand and I will recognize you in the normal way. And I'm glad to see you're looking well. I'd like to add onto the agenda under 9E, and it won't be part of the consent agenda, but will be after it, annual review of executive director. Does anyone else have anything to add to the agenda? If not, is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
What's that?
Mr. Stevens?
I approve.
You move it. Is there a
Move it,
second?
yes.
Mr.
Second.
Perkins? Okay. Please vote. And it passes 4-0, and let it reflect that Ms. Campbell votes yes, so it's 5-0. We have no public hearings. The next item is open forum. Do we have any pink slips? Does anyone wish to address us in public forum? Seeing none, you'll have another chance if you wish. The next item is the Recycle Star presentation, and Mr. Williams is going to draw a number for us to recognize. Mr. Williams, if you will pick this month's winner.
And the winner is number 7.
Number 7, that is Pamela and Rob Dewhurst. So they will be notified that they are our Recycle Star winners. The other people who did an outstanding job this month of recycling are George and Betty Bennett, Ms. Andy Schutt and Larry Legg, Iris Ingram, Adrian Smiley, LaQuandra Mosley, Anthony Ross, Ernestine Tomasoni, Susan Stubbins, Debbie Bossum, Walter Gay, Wendell Lawrence, Theodore Morgan, Christopher Maxwell, Larry Rowe, Jackie Van Pelt, Jennifer Pease, Laurie Tackett, Alexis Dickey, Barbara Murray, Lena Murphy, Kenneth Shaw, Deborah Bowen, Cheryl Stone, Sylvia Sims, Lacey McShane, Mary Petty homeowner Cheryl Zlakis, partner, Anthony MacArthur, and Becky Calero. Thank you all for what you do for our community. The next item is the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of June 22nd, 2021. Does anyone have any changes or additions to the minutes? Mr. Stevens,
I'm sorry.
do you have a change or addition to the minutes?
I do not.
Okay. Your light is still on, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's why. Mr. Williams,
So moved that we accept the minutes.
the minutes have been moved as presented. Mr. Perkins?
I'll second it, but on page 10, I think there's probably a scrivener's error. It says, have our legislatures assist us. I think that should probably read legislators rather than
Very good.
legislatures.
Okay, we will make that change as noted. Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Seeing no further lights, we will approve the minutes as amended. Please vote. And Ms. Campbell votes yes, so it passes 5-0. The next item is the report of the ECUA Citizens Advisory Committee of July 15th, and that report will be done by Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report of the ECUA Citizens Advisory Committee for Tuesday, July the 20th, 2021, 3 p.m. Committee members present, everyone was present with the exception of those that were absent, which was Vicki Campbell, Rochelle Snyder, and Chuck Kimball. Item F, adoption of general resolution GR 21-46, a general resolution authorizing the acceptance of bid and award of contract to Allied Universal Corporation of Miami, Florida for sodium hydrochloride and providing an effective date. Motion was made by Ms. Campbell, seconded by Ms. Benson, seconded by Mr. Kirschner, that the board adopt general resolution for GR 21-46, and the committee voted to approve it by a vote of 9-0. Item G, adoption of general resolution number GR 21-47. Is a general resolution authorizing the extension of the contract with Sodium Ionics Incorporated for aluminum sulfate and providing an effective date. The motion was made by Ms. Benson, seconded by Mr. Brown, that the board adopt general resolution GR 21-47. It was approved by the committee of a vote of 9-0. Item H, adoption of general resolution GR 21-48, a general resolution authorizing the executive director to sign an engineering services proposal from Tank Industry Consultants in the amount of $113,890 for design and construction phase services for rehabilitation of the PCC tank, authorizing the use of funds from RW 817 elevated tank maintenance. Motion made by Mr. Perkins, seconded by Ms. Benson, that the board adopt general resolution number GR 21-48, and the committee voted by a vote of 9-0 to approve it. Item I, adoption of general resolution number GR 21-49, a general resolution authorizing the executive director to execute an interlocal cost-sharing agreement with Escambia County for the cost of water main replacement on Kimstrand Road, authorizing the transfer and use of project funds. Motion made by Ms. Benson, seconded by Mr. Brown, that the board adopt general resolution GR 21-49. The committee approved it by a vote of 9-0. I would like to move items F through I for approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. It's seconded by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? If not, we are voting on items F through I. Please vote. And it passes 5-0. Does that conclude your report?
Yes, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. We come now to item 9, the consent agenda. The first item is on page 13. It's an ECUA special resolution number SR 21-50, a preliminary rate-setting resolution providing for notice and public hearing concerning the proposed establishment of revised sanitation service charges. The next item is found on page 22. It is item B, adoption of resolution number SR 21-51, a preliminary rate-setting resolution providing for notice and public hearing concerning the proposed establishment of revised water and wastewater rates and charges. The next item is item C, found on page 28. ECUA General Resolution Number GR 21-52, a general resolution authorizing the award of bid 2021-05 and issuance of an annual service contract for grounds maintenance for the Central Water Reclamation Facility, regional lift stations, and the Guillemard Street Storage Tank. And finally, item D, which is found on page 32, ECUA General Resolution Number GR 2153, a general resolution authorizing the Executive Director to execute a contract with Litvak Beasley Wilson and Ball LLP for attorney services at specified rates and providing an effective date. Does anyone want to remove any of these from the consent agenda to consider separately? Mr. Perkins.
Could we hold 9B for a separate vote, please?
Okay, we will hold 9B. Mr. Williams?
Can we hold 9C?
And we will hold 9C. Anyone else? Okay, then we are voting on item 9A and 9D.
Madam Chair,
I
Yes,
have a
Mr.
question
Beasley.
on 9.
Ms.
Oh, I'm
Camp-
sorry. Ms. Campbell, sorry I missed you.
That's okay. Yeah, I have a question on 9As before we vote.
On
9A.
9A, okay, it was not being withdrawn. Would you like to just ask your question, Ms. Campbell?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask my question. I just want assurance that this increase will fix our issues with yard waste before I support it.
The transmission is not too good, Ms. Campbell. You want to be sure that this rate increase would fix the problems with yard waste, is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I don't see Mr. Rudd here. Mr. Woody, would you like to address Ms. Campbell's question?
Could I ask you to rephrase that? Fix the problems, or we're talking about a financial issue, supply,
No.
could you be more specific, please?
I'm talking about missed pickup for the yard waste. It's just, I mean, I get 20 calls a week now, and I never did before, and I just want to make sure before I increase everyone's fees for sanitation, that this increase is going to address that issue.
It addresses it in part. The largest challenges we really have with yard waste are availability of day laborers. CDL drivers have been a challenge, but the day labor situation is probably the largest single challenge we have with that. We are coming out of, or we're coming out of the largest demand portion of the season, so that's helps a little bit. Although we, on occasion, do get behind 2 to 4 hours, and sometimes we'll finish on a Saturday. Usually, we are providing a quicker service than the city's been able to. I think your question is probably more pointed toward misses or locations where we've missed a pickup.
Yes.
Yeah, and we'll certainly do our best not for that not to occur, and appreciate everybody using the ECUA app to let us know as timely as they can when those occasions do occur. I certainly apologize for that.
Does that conclude your remarks, Ms. Campbell?
Thank you, yes.
Yeah, and I think we all echo the concerns of Ms. Campbell, but I believe this rate increase was designed to help us overcome the challenges that we're having with missed pickups. And it's a leap of faith that we are going to be able to overcome it to some extent, but we're doing our part, I think. Mr. Stevens.
So to your point, Ms. Campbell, that's what I needed to get a preliminary yes vote for an increase, was not just the CDL drivers, but the garbage haulers and so forth. So for me, I, like you, have gotten inundated with calls on missed pickups and so forth. which Mr. Woody is great about forwarding to Mr. Rudd and getting that handled. But the point is to eliminate them so we don't get the calls. And I have explained to, my ratepayers, my constituents in my district that I was made aware, wasn't 100% sure prior to getting elected to this position, or probably 99.99% of all Escambia County residents know that day labor is used to pick up our trash. I can tell you, I spoke to an HOA with 158 upset members last night, and I spent over the weekend speaking to some of these individuals, told them I'd go to their, and not one of them knew that we used, maybe something we kind of put out and educate the public on, that we use day labor for our bulk pickup. So hopefully, I don't know how, we're going to defer to Mr. Woody and staff, I think is what it was, for them to allot the increased wages to the appropriate departments that will hopefully, in addition to CDL drivers, make it more incentivized to come work with us and show up on time and pick that garbage up. Fingers crossed. That was the idea, anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Mr. Williams?
Can I respond to Mr. Stevens? And I thank you, sir. We're talking about education. I think that's the biggest thing that we need to do right now is to educate our constituents somehow. I mean, I know you're out there talking, I'm out there talking, some people are out there talking, but we need a broader brush of communication with the public. I don't care if we have to take out an ad in the Pensacola News Journal, but to make people understand what the problem is. I think they, like you, when I tell people what the problem is, they totally understand it. But no communication at all just makes people think we don't care. And so I would love to see some type of communication, not just on our Facebook, but in our newsletter. I saw a little blurb in our newsletter, which was good, and I posted that to my Facebook, a picture of it. But I think if all of the board members would do the same, and if we could maybe get something out in the media, just to let them know what the problem is that the day laborers just not coming to work, then they would be very understanding. I mean, I know that Wendy's has closed 2 restaurants in Pensacola because they can't get laborers. So people understand that. I know I don't hate Wendy's because they don't have my hamburger, and I don't think people would be upset with us if they knew we were trying, but we just couldn't find the labor. So thank you for saying that about education, sir.
Let me do this. We're on a consent agenda, and so we've already sort of, why don't we just take the items individually, because we already had some pulled. So let's just sort of backtrack, and let's have a motion for item A, adoption of special resolution number SR 2150. Is there a motion? Mr. Stevens?
I'll move the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
I'll second the
It's
motion.
been moved and seconded. Okay, and this is the rate increase for sanitation. We've had several comments. Is there, Mr. Williams, you're
Yes,
recognized.
I would like to be on the record as making comments as well to the extent that I think with the rate increase, citizens should get a increase in service or whatever that would require, whether it's training from the employees that we hire or whether it's somehow equipping the trucks to do the job that the new drivers cannot. It would be to our benefit to put the time in so that the job reflects an increase in rates, not the same service that they were getting prior to the increase in rate. Because I too get those same calls, and I'm gonna go and sell this rate increase, but I need to sell this rate increase with the fact that we're going to make sure their services are increased as well.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, and I concur. We're all getting these same calls. I know that Mr. Rudd and Mr. Kiles don't even like seeing texts or emails from me because of the missed pickups. I do know that we cannot guarantee that the service is going to be better. I think we're doing our part to give an opportunity to increase the service. I also firmly believe that if we did not implement this rate increase, we're sure not to get improved service. So we have to, empower the staff with the financial resources that they believe they need to improve the services. And I think this is what this resolution reflects. Mr. Perkins?
Well, I hate rate increases, and I vote against them pretty frequently, and it's a real hard sell to get me to go for any rate increase. I'm probably maybe extreme on that at some times. And this is a sizable rate increase to the sanitation thing, but the truth is we are not providing the service we say we're going to provide right now. And I think the reason is that it's underfunded. I mean, we're not paying CDL drivers enough to keep them. Obviously, we're not paying day laborers enough to do the job. And so, if we provide better service than other providers. I mean, that bulk item pickup is a real nice feature. I had some rentals, up in Ferry Pass, and it's so nice to be able to throw an old couch or stuff that people leave behind, a dresser with broken drawers or, stuff like that, put it out outside and not have to call and arrange to pick every week, that comes and gets picked up. But it costs money. That's an extra service that costs money. And so we'll still be below the city's rate even with the increase, even though they don't provide that service. So we're providing a pretty good service for the money, but my expectation is that with this increase, the service will improve. If it doesn't, I think some things need to happen to figure out why. So, yeah, I'm gonna vote for the increase, but my expectation is that the problems we're seeing are gonna be addressed. That's the reason I'm voting for the increase.
Well said, Mr. Perkins. Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned this at the CAC meeting, but I went to a community center meeting that Commissioner Berry invited me to, knowing full well what I was getting myself into, because I had just gone on the record voting for a rate increase after, I'm blasting ECUA's perpetual rate increases, right? So I knew about it. I knew I was getting myself, and in knowing full well, I went anyway. So, but, I addressed it like this. To your point, Mr. Perkins, we've got to deliver. I mean, we've got to deliver. And I know the dilemma, Mr. Woody, that we're in right now, as not just as a county, but as a nation on the short labor. So what Ms. Campbell just stated about Wendy's, I mean, that hurt a little bit, but TGI Fridays really hurt me. So when my wife and I had met there, and I had a lot of sentimental memories of TGI Fridays, the only TGI Fridays left. And it's closed down strictly because of lack of labor. I know that the regional VP happens to be a personal friend of mine. So very sad, but it's a sad state of affairs. And I'm talking to one of the biggest, Mr. Bullington, Sean, and he's anti rate increase, anti a lot of things. But I remember calling him up right after the News Journal released an article about a change of hours for Escambia County schools. And the reason they're changing the hours is because of lack of CDL drivers. So we're all feeling it. Santa Rosa County is in discussions, stay tuned for that article to come out, in the same situation. So it's the lack they need. They said between 100 and some odd plus more drivers. This is in Santa Rosa County. So the challenges are students, people were keeping their kids out of school. So kindergarten, they're just like, kindergarten, kindergarten, we'll just wait till first grade, whatever the case may be, preschool. Now they're all sending them back. So there's going to be a large influx. Santa Rosa County is about to feel it. I anticipate them putting out an article similar to Escambia County, lack of CDL drivers. So it's not just ECUA that's feeling this. And that's what I was telling, my ratepayers, my constituents, is like, look, ECUA is in the same boat as everyone else. I just with equipment suppliers, with PVC, with pipe, with PEX, everything is going up. I've got businesses that are getting 20 and 30% increases. I'm sitting in staff meetings last week and this week with and I'm assuming we're getting them over here at ECUA as well. Perpetual rate increases and with no time, not 30, 60, 90 days to prepare accordingly. So I'm looking at these rate increases. They are a lot. I mean, it's not a 2%. It's pretty significant. But my concern right now, as I sit down and talk to various business partners of mine, is This is at a minimum that we're going to need, because ECUA, if we haven't already, stand by, are going to be getting some rate increases from our suppliers already, coming down the pike. If we're getting them at large plumbing supply houses, it's a matter of time that we're going to get them here. So this rate increase, not only is it going to be necessary to keep our CDL drivers, I mean, I want increased service, but I told the very upset HOA president last night off Kingsfield, is like, look, we want increased service, we want better service, but at the very least, we want to maintain our current service, because right now, we can't afford to lose 4, 5, 6, 7 drivers. So it's just not sustainable for us to lose that, and we're in a competitive situation, not just with the city and the private sector pulling at us right now. So, like I said, these rate increases that we're proposing are at a minimum, but there are multiple factors driving, not just the labor market, but the supply chain market as well, that are going to, I don't think we're going to have some windfall. I'll tell folks that these rate increases are not going to generate us some big windfall. I think that initial increase in rates, i.e. revenue, is going to be absorbed pretty darn quickly between labor and materials. Anyway, that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. And Mr. Williams, if you'll wait just a second. Mr. Woody, we talk about kind of a big number in percentage. What is the average customer going to see in a rate increase for sanitation?
We have a great deal number of customers, but the number that's going to be most relative to our average customer is going to be the rate charged for a 90-gallon container, which is standard residential service. That's $1.85.
So it's $1.85 is a lot, 9% sounds really big, but it's $1.85, which still keeps us below the city. I'm sorry, Mr. Williams, I jumped ahead of you. You're recognized now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Mrs. Stevens was saying, there are a lot of factors going into the rate increases, and I don't have a problem with that. But I think what I wanted to hear was what would be done to objectively say how we were going to try and fix the problem. I don't think that's too much to ask, so that we can at least be able to hold leadership responsible for delivering what they say they're going to attempt to do to fix the problem. Logistics, labor, I understand, out of our control, but a plan to address the issues are within the control of leadership to say, this is how we'll attempt to fix the problem. And that's what I don't hear, and that's what I like to hear, considering, and that's what I'll take back to constituents, so that they can expect to see. And so that's not what's been made available. Other than that, I am still in support, knowing that there are price increases, labor shortages throughout the economy.
And Mr. Woody, would you like to respond?
Yeah, can I give a two-part response? There's short-term strategies and long-term strategies. This challenge using day laborers has been something we've identified, frankly, even before COVID came along, and these other outside factors made a current situation worse. So administration had identified and recommended that since having day laborers, having difficulty with day laborers during the most difficult times of the year, when our volumes are up and when the temperatures outside are at their worst, that was already identified as a problem. So while in the short term we're talking about rates and whether we raise pay rates in order to be competitive with the shrinking labor market, we've also been in the midst of a longer-term approach as well. As you know, we made a $420,000 investment in purchasing a new prototype piece of equipment to try to automate that process and use less labor and use equipment to more quickly do that work and have it be less labor intensive. So that is an initiative, frankly, that started last year with the board's support, and we're excited about that. That will be obviously a long-term ongoing investment, if that is successful, by replacing our old-style equipment with equipment that can better automate that pickup process and be less dependent on labor as well.
Thank you, Mr. Woody. And if you will recall, in our budget process, we had each department have certain goals, specific goals. And that's where we hold their feet to the fire is, have they reduced the missed pickups and all of that? And we will look to that. Yes, Ms. Campbell?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask if, our, PIO staff, because, I'm sure the News Journal and, WEAR and other medias will be, talking about the rate increase next month. So when they do, I would just really like for them to have a statement ready to talk about some of these issues with the shortage of labor and being our reason for the rate increase.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. I will
Thank
add,
you.
someone told me this weekend, I go to Joe Patty's very frequently, and there was a sign on the door, they were closed for lack of labor. When Frank Patty closes his door, we've got a labor problem. Okay, I see no more lights, so we're voting on item 9A, special resolution number SR 2150, a rate-setting resolution. Ms. Campbell, you're voting. Okay, please vote. Make sure your light is depressed. Oh, she did vote, yes, yeah. She did. And it passes 5-0. Thank you all for good discussion. The next item is found on page 22, is adoption of special resolution SR 2151. Is there a motion? And this is the water and wastewater rates. Mr. Williams.
I move the resolution.
Mr. Williams moves it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have Ms. Campbell seconds it. Okay, discussion on this item. As you will recall, we tied this to a 2.5% rate increase and tied it to the Brownsville project. Discussion of this item. Mr. Williams.
If I am reading this correctly, the average single-family residential will see an increase of 27 cents?
Mr. Woody?
When we quote rates, in order to make it somewhat representative, we choose a number that's fairly typical for a residential user, and that would be a consumption of 6,000 gallons a month. If you apply that to water, that'd be an additional 71 cents a month, and on the sewer side, it'd be 35 cents a month.
You said on water?
On water, it would be about 71 cents. If you look under single-family residential, other single-family residential is going from $12.70 to $13.02. That's the difference of
Right.
base rate of 32 cents. Then the volume charge per 1,000 gallons is going up about 7 cents. You apply that to, it's about 6,000 consumption.
Okay.
And
Times
then
that.
add that to the base rate, that's in the vicinity of about 71 cents, 71.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Williams?
So the base rate is that the $10.94? Or is it, where's the base rate?
Right now, it's $12.70 and proposed to go $13.02.
Okay, and so you add the per gallon to the 1302?
Yes.
Okay, yes, that answers my question.
If you use no water whatsoever, you still have a base rate charge because we have We've provided the service, it's available to use, whether you choose to use it or not, or whatever value it is.
And
There's
since-
certain overhead costs just for having service availability.
Okay, and since we've been astute about it, 6,000 gallons is approximately, what can I do as a single-family resident with 6,000 gallons? Is that, how do you come up with a 6,000
Yeah.
gallons?
That's just an average consumption rate over all of our customers. So in the same way, you'd say the typical home probably has 2.4 kids or,
Yeah.
whatever. It comes out some really odd, fractions like that. Same type of calculations done
Okay.
to come up with an average.
Okay.
If you have a couple teenage girls, all the bets are off.
That's true, that'll blow it out of the water. But on the other side, an older couple with no children at home would be different as well. Lower.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, to follow up, Mr. Williams, with your question, Mr. Woody, and we'd had this discussion before about the total of if both of the proposed rate increases are passed, to be determined, the combined increase average to the ratepayer, was it like $3? What were both, if the 2.5 and 9.5 were both combined, what would we come up with? I think it was like ballpark, obviously.
227,
Okay.
real quick.
I mean, it's less than $3, I think. And again, to Ms. Campbell's question, we need to have that, teed up for the media on if proposed rate increases, this would be an average of what it would go. I mean, because again, Chairwoman Benson, when someone says 9%, I mean, they're just like, whoa. I mean, it's it sounds like pretty stout, But when you break that down with both, and again, I was talking to an elderly lady, young lady, over the weekend about the proposed rate increase, and I'm not discounting $2 being a lot on a fixed income. I'm in my earning years now, so $2-3 is less for me a month than maybe someone on a fixed income. So I'm very cognizant of the fact that that's a real deal, but that does need to be illustrated to the public that if proposed, this is what we're talking about, because they like to, the devil's in the details and the stats. So that needs to have a little line item, if proposed, would equal approximately X amount. Anyway, so I think that's very important that we have some influence on the narrative, which is never kind to a public entity as it relates to a rate increase.
You're so right. It doesn't take long to learn that in public office, does it? Mr. Woody, did you have something to add? Okay, so, Ms. Campbell?
I agree with Mr. Stevens, and I'd also like the public to know that we're trying to get these grants from FDEP, and if we get the grants, we have to have the money in hand to match those grants. So I'd just like the public to know why we're doing what we're doing.
Yes, I think there's a great deal of support for the project in Brownsville. Thank you. I see no more lights, so we are now voting on item 9B. Please vote. And Ms. Campbell votes yes, Madam Clerk. And it passes 4-1. The next item is item 9C, a general resolution authorizing the award of bid of 2021-05 and issuance of an annual service contract for grounds maintenance for the Central Wastewater Reclamation Facility, Regional Lift Stations, and Guillemard Street Storage Tank. Is there a motion? Don't be shy.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Campbell makes the motion. Mr. Perkins?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Discussion. This is just a contract award to the lowest bidder. Any discussion? Mr. Williams?
Madam Chair, question would be, how many times has this company been awarded this contract?
This is a new contract, I believe, isn't it? I believe Executive Landscaping had it before, is that correct? Mr. Wood?
This is a new contract with this individual. I'll let Jerry talk
Okay.
about any past history we've had with this contractor, though I don't know that.
Mr. Piscopo, you are recognized.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. Basically, the contract was historically for 7 years, I believe, Executive Landscaping had it. And then it went to another company for a couple of years, and they did not rebid it on when we advertised it this time. And these were the two bids that were received. This will be Wallace's first time, and they have Blue Wahoo Stadium. They are more than capable of handling the contract, so I would expect them to be able to handle it. And they are ready to go.
Good.
And we're excited to have them because it's been raining.
Thank you, Mr. Piscopo. Any other questions, Mr. Williams?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. I see nothing else, so we are now voting on item 9C. Please vote. And Ms. Campbell votes yes. And it passes, she voted yes twice with two thumbs. It passes 5-0. Okay, the next item is item 9D, and that you find on page 32. And this is a general resolution authorizing the executive director to execute a contract with Litvak, Beasley, Wilson and Ball LLP for attorney services at specified rates and providing effective date. Is there a motion? Mr. Perkins?
Move the resolution.
Ms. Campbell?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I met with Mr. Beasley today and reviewed all of the evaluations that you all turned in regarding our legal services. I can say that we are well pleased with our attorney, and I appreciate all of the thought that went into the evaluations. But he did indeed receive very high marks. Ms. Campbell?
I just wanted to make a comment that both Robert and Don, as well as Philip Pugh, I think have done a fantastic job for us. Everybody might remember I wasn't able to vote on this issue. And I had a direct conflict with one and had worked with some of the others. And I'm not sure if I would have voted for you, Robert, if I could, but by golly, I'll vote for you the next time because I really think that you have done a fantastic job. Dawn has done a fantastic job, and Philip Pugh has done a fantastic job in your absence. So please make sure they know that we appreciate all of them.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Mr. Stevens?
And I just want to echo that, Mr. Beasley, as well, the excellent job you're doing. And I know we'd had a discussion, me being the fiscally budget guy, I appreciate the way your firm has scaled the rates, how we spoke with. So we've got we've got the expert, you up here, and then, of course, if it doesn't need the expert, maybe a paralegal, maybe an administrative individual can answer those questions. You've scaled that, so that's a savings to ECUA that gets passed on to the ratepayer. So I want to thank you for that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I spoke with Mr. Woody and Mr. Beasley before the meeting, and we discussed looking at the comparison between the previous attorney's fees and the total expenditures and what we're spending now, and we anticipate that we will have accrued a substantial savings because they have a deeper bench, as Mr. Beasley puts it. They have expertise in a number of fields so that we don't have to go out beyond their firm. So it's been a real benefit. And yet they're still small and they turn on a dime when they have a question. So we do appreciate you. Mr. Woody?
Yeah, I would just like to add that it's really been my pleasure working with your firm, Robert. Extremely responsive. That's probably the most important single first factor. We need your help. We got somebody there, Don especially, really is good about that. So it's been a pleasure and certainly recommend that the board renew this contract.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for their comments, Madam Chair. Thank you.
I see no more comments, so we are now voting on the contract with the attorney. And Ms. Campbell votes 2 thumbs up. And your contract has been renewed at a vote of 5-0, so congratulations, welcome back. Okay, the next item is item 9E, and this is the annual review to follow on to that of our executive director. This was a more complete evaluation. There were many categories, and consistently, Mr. Woody got 5s and 4s, which is excellent or above average. And it's certainly been an interesting time in which he came on to the utility, but the evaluations showed an extreme satisfaction with our executive director consistently across the board. I invite the board members to ask for copies of these evaluations if you want to see them further. I appreciate the time that you put in to doing these evaluations, but I think overall we are extremely pleased with the selection that we made. Mr. Woody's salary per contract is predicated on these evaluations. Our previous contract with the executive director had an annual increase that was at the same rate of the employee's increase. In this contract, we didn't do that. He does not get an increase unless he has successful evaluations. I would say our evaluations were more than satisfactory, and I would recommend that we award him a 3.2% rate increase, which is consistent with our employees, but we would need a motion and a second to do that.
I'll make a motion.
It's been moved by Mr. Stevens and seconded by Ms. Campbell. Mr. Perkins, you were just seconding, okay. Mr. Stevens?
No, I would just like to say, the most challenging part of that evaluation for you, Mr. Woody, as well as you, Mr. Beasley, was to try to give you additional recommendations on doing an even better job than what you are. So I really had to struggle because, both you guys are great. I mean, very responsive. I send out emails at all hours of the night. I don't expect a response on those emails in the evenings. It's just my way of getting it out as I get the information out, but you all are quick to respond to the emails. I probably bug you all probably more than I should, just to make sure that me being a first termer and all, I want to make sure I don't make any missteps. So you've all been very kind with your advice, your counsel. So I thank you for that. I can't say enough, positive things about either one of you. But I know we're addressing Mr. Woody right now, so I can't say enough positive things about you when I'm out there in the field talking to my constituents and how lucky and blessed we are as ECUA and as the residents of Escambia County to have you on board at the helm. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Stevens. And I think we get the same rate of review from outside in the community as well. I keep hearing good things when he's out in the community. Mr. Woody, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. Please understand that I really take to heart the constructive criticism comments. There is a comment section, and several of you, besides putting in very kind and thoughtful comments, added some good suggestions. I look forward to working on those and providing some responses to, again, keep on moving the organization forward. So thank you. And performance reviews, they may happen on paper once a year, but please know I appreciate and want your feedback all the times throughout the year.
Thank you, Mr. Woody. Mr. Perkins?
I am really pleased with Mr. Woody's job as executive director. I was initially hesitant, particularly after our first interview, because I saw him as very professional, very competent as far as engineering and stuff goes, but I thought, man, this is kind of a rough and tumble political atmosphere we have here. There are a lot of special interests that funnel a lot of money to state politicians and local politicians, and we've always said no to those special interests when it's appropriate. And I thought, I don't know if Mr. Woody, given his calm demeanor and personality, is going to be able to stand up to that and come across okay in the public arena with all that pressure and everything. And I guess they must have some of that in St. Joseph, Missouri, too, because he's done very well, and he's been accepted well by the community. He's a good spokesperson for us, has a lot of integrity, And so I think that a raise it's the same raise the other employees are getting is more than warranted.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. And before we vote, let me just say how much I value this board and how you handle our employees. It's very refreshing to see the feedback that you give and the thoroughness with which you reviewed, which is the way it should be, but not always happens. Ms. Campbell?
Yeah, I just want to say that Bruce Woody is probably the most responsive leader I've ever worked with in my life. If you called me last week, I wasn't feeling too hot, and I promise you I would not have answered the telephone last week. But I called Bruce, and he wasn't feeling too hot. And it was after hours this weekend, and he picked up the phone and talked to me for the longest time. So, he's just the most responsive. He answers everything, and even when he knows that he can't do what I'm asking, he at least tries to respond to why he can't do what I'm asking, politely. And he's been an absolute joy to work with over the last year, and I look forward to working with him over the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. I see no more lights, so we are now voting on his pay increase commensurate with the other employees. Please vote. And Ms. Campbell votes yes, and it passes 5-0. Well-deserved, Mr. Woody. Thank you. All right, we come now to the budget report. Is Mr. Smith? There you are.
Good afternoon. I've got the budget report as of June 30, 2021 in front of you. We've went through 75% of this fiscal year, and there's really not a whole lot sticking out on this report. Our water and wastewater fund is just under 75% on the expense side, and the sanitation is a little over. Most of the items that are over budget are similar to what they have been the last few months due to overtime. We've got vacant positions, and so the ones that are here are having to work overtime, which, cost us $1.50, more than normal, so, or 1.5 times more.
How are we addressing these vacant positions? This probably needs to go to Mr. Woody. Right. Is this a problem that we have?
Well, certainly turnover any position is a challenge, either due to the shortage of staff at the time, not to mention our investment in training. The shortages he's primarily talking about are in the sanitation area. So that gets back to the availability of CDL drivers, and then the amount of money we'll have to spend on getting day laborers as well. I am pleased to say that Randy now has a full complement of maintenance staff at MRF. He picked up 3 additional positions last week that were filled. We're pleased with that. And hopefully the additional funding that will be provided with this rate increase will help us on the CDL side.
So we're not seeing any trends in vacancies overall. It's mostly the sanitation issue.
Primarily.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, I see no more lights, Mr. Smith, so thank you for your report.
Thank you.
The next item is the Executive Director's report. Mr. Woody, you are recognized.
This is the last time that you'll see the agenda format in terms of the computer screens here at your desk, because we're making the transition to PrimeGov. August 17th and 24th, at both the CAC meeting and the board meeting, we will be using the PrimeGov software. So we're really looking forward to that transition. Staff's been working on it for quite some time. As with anything, it is a little new, so there will be some questions and answers as we go through it. But through a little bit of repetition and experience, we think it'll provide us a smoother product for actual operations during the meeting. It'll certainly be a vast improvement for the staff who worked together collectively to prepare the agenda. Great benefit to Amanda. She has had to do so much of this work by hand, paginating everything and getting everything together. We'll have an opportunity to finally get a lot of that automated, which will help significantly. I'd like to thank the staff that have really worked on that, which is Amanda and Shakiva and John and Michelle, Jessica, who am I leaving out, Sherry, and many others who've worked together to put together the workflow for this project, and appreciate all that's taken to get us to this point. A couple updates. As you know, we did have an unfortunate event at our materials recovery facility, and we are currently still working on getting ourselves back in service. Our insurance provider, FMIT, has been extremely responsive, as they have back during the Hurricane Sally event, so I'm very pleased with that. Our sprinkler service was immediately put back in service within just a few days. They have a contractor, Belfour, who is currently cleaning the entire inside of that facility due to the smoke from burning plastics, et cetera. It was a safety concern that we have any residuals from that smoke be cleaned from the facility. While they're doing that, we've completed an itemized list of replacement parts. I think that may still be ongoing. I don't know if that's entirely complete yet. Jerry and his I&E folks are working on replacing electrical controls that were damaged or heat damaged, having pulling a lot new wire. Meanwhile, the contractor and subcontractor of FMIT have ordered belts and other related equipment from the sorting mechanism that was damaged from the fire. We've also ordered a replacement robot. You may remember we use a robot from a company called AMP that does quite a bit of our sorting, and that is in progress. We might also take this downtime as an opportunity to relocate our magnet for the metal sorting operation and put it at the head of the facility. We believe that that was the source of the fire, and we'd like to get that out ahead of the equipment and outside in front of the machine, as opposed to being over the top of the machine in the future. Until we have entire list of replacement parts and the subcontractor can give us a installation timetable, I can't quite give you a estimated time that we'll be back in service just yet. We're continuing to encourage all of our customers and others to continue the normal routine. We're still picking up trash as well as recyclables separately in order to keep everybody in the routine, and certainly we hope that to be as quick as we can turn that around. One other brief update. You may remember we did have the issue at Bayou Marcus earlier, and we've installed the bypass pumping to allow us to replace the replace the main influent line to the B&R basins. Right now that is under construction and is making fairly decent progress. Again, we continue to remain in service while we're replacing that vital trunk line into the front end of the plant. And that's all the updates that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Woody. Any questions for Mr. Woody? Seeing none, we'll move to the attorney's report. Mr. Beasley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report at this time.
Okay. We have nothing under unfinished business or new business. We come to board communications. Mr. Perkins.
Excuse me, I'm sorry I didn't add this earlier, because it could be unfinished business, but a while back, we had one of the septic haulers, some of the septic haulers come and say, hey, look, we really could use some more after-hours time, because it's really cumbersome. The fees are kind of exorbitant after hours, and it's inefficient for us to have to hold on to it. That makes us unavailable for other people while we're holding that. And they suggested implementing a lot of other utilities do, like a 10-cent per gallon fee, and using the money from that to cover an after-hours time rather than having the really high after-hours fees. And so I talked to Mr. Woody earlier today and asked him, hey, can we put pen to paper on that and see, because there's some good policy implications from it. I think being able to get rid of it right away while it's still fresh, rather than it gets more and more rancid while they're holding it, is to our benefit. And I think them having the capacity, having those tanks empty as often as possible and having the capacity to get whatever comes up whenever, is also helpful to our community. So I think it makes sense to analyze it and see if it can be done like that policy-wise. I'm not saying go ahead and do it, I'm just saying let's look at the numbers and see if that's something that might work and bring it back to us.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Perkins. Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, just to follow up, what Mr. Perkins says, you had to kind of put a pen to a paper to find out what an additional, I don't know if it's 10 cents, but 2 cents, whatever a gallon would be amortized throughout as that, to your point, I have a special knowledge about septic companies, so in addition to holding that septic and sewage, it makes it, unavailable for folks, and then the folks that it is available for, which I think is what Mr. Cheney came up here and spoke to us, Roto-Rooter Septic Company, is those additional fees get passed on to the consumer. So at the end of the day, we're looking at, who's the most affected by this, and it's the consumer, because we charge, of course, the hauler X amount for after hours or holidays, whatever the case may be, that gets passed on to the consumer. So again, in theory, if we were able to level that, even that out, then that would reduce the charge to the consumer ultimately, which is what we're looking at. So thank you again, Mr. Perkins, for bringing that up, because I've actually got a call from Mr. Cheney a couple weeks ago, which I've been a little remiss on following up on about that.
So I think there's no objection if you will have staff look at that issue, Mr. Woody. Anything else under board communications?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes, ma'am. I want to thank Dale for bringing that up as well. I agreed with Mr. Cheney at the time that people don't work like they used to. People have all hours of work, and I think in the evenings is when people need our help the most. So I appreciate that. I wanted to say something else about, you don't judge leaders on how they're doing when it's status quo and everything's nice and smooth. You judge them on how they work when the going gets tough. And it's been really difficult in sanitation lately. So I'd just like to shout out a thank you to Keith Kiles. He is so responsive, number one, but he is so respectful, number two. He is always there to help, and he stands by his word. If things don't get done, he makes sure they get done. So he's had a rough time with all this going on, and I just wanted to say thank you out loud to him. I wanted to thank Mr. Johnson for taking the gavel last week in my absence. I know it was short notice, but I appreciate it. And thank you to Bruce and fellow board members that reached out to me with all the support last week. It meant a lot to me. Appreciate it. Thank
I
you.
think you meant Mr. Williams for taking the gavel. Yeah.
I've been called Johnson before, so.
You've been called Johnson before, okay. And Mr. Williams, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just if there, I should have probably made these comments during the executive director comments, but if there are any more changes to normal operating procedures right now due to constraints on labor, please let us know, like the 25 count limit for bulk pickup and those kind of things due to shortages on drivers. Well, if a customer wants to pay for an extra pickup, my understanding right now is customer service is only taking the first 25 per day or per week, and then they have to go to, if they don't make that cut, the customer has to go and try to find a third-party person to do bulk pickup.
there is a certain capacity limitation. Most days, we're able to keep up. If we get a particular rush, then sometimes we'll have to put off to the second day our commitment of when we can make a pickup. I think that, I'm guessing that's what you're referring to.
No, I actually sent an email to you and to Randy.
Yeah, and I remember his reply, and it had to do with the capacity and our ability to make only a certain number of special. And we're talking about the regular pickups that are done
No, you're
at a
right.
curb,
We're
not about the
going
ones that are called
special.
and scheduled, because they're
Yes.
unusually large or unusual,
Yes.
unusual items. Yeah.
And so if there are any other changes like that, that would be contrary to what what I would know as I put it out to the customer, then please let me know before I tell the customer
Okay.
something that would be contrary, that I have to go back and tell them different afterwards. So but you are familiar with what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, you're talking about when somebody has to make a special call for
Correct.
a bulk
Yes.
item that's above and beyond what we normally provide at the curb.
Yes.
We only have a limited capacity of staff to be able to do so much of that per day, and if we've exceeded that capacity, then yes, it would have to roll over to.
And is it per day?
There's only so many staff to do those kinds of calls. Usually, we're able to satisfy requests on the given day. Occasionally, we'll get more than we can handle in a particular day.
Okay.
That doesn't happen frequently, but when it does happen, we hit a limit of what we can handle in a given day.
Okay. Let Mr. Rudd know I missed him today.
I'm sorry.
Let Mr. Rudd know I missed him here today.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else under board communications? I would like once again to encourage people who have not had their vaccines to please do it. We're seeing an uptick in the numbers and a downtick in the ages of people who are affected by it. We don't know the long-term effects of COVID, and we do have an effective vaccine, so I encourage people to take the opportunity to become vaccinated. We come now to open forum. I have no pink slips for open forum. Is there anyone who wishes to address us? If not, good meeting, folks. We're adjourned.